Pompeii. Ancient remains there are helping scientists learn what happens to a human body when it's caught in a volcanic eruption. The Conversation reports this by Tim Thompson, Professor of Applied Biological Anthropology, Teesside University of the UK. The recent eruptions in Iceland, vividly captured through dramatic drone footage, draw public attention to the immense power of volcanoes. Beautiful though they are, and mesmerizing to watch, they are also, of course, deadly. History records eruptions so spectacular they've never been forgotten. These include Krakatoa in 1883, whose explosion was heard around the world, and Mount Tambora, which resulted in famines across the northern hemisphere. But perhaps the most famous of all is the eruption of Vesuvius in Italy in AD 79, and that sealed the Roman towns of Pompeii and Heraclium beneath layers of ash. Human activity has long been influenced by volcanic eruptions, and now research into the variety of ways the skeletons react to heat is allowing us greater understanding of their impact on human death in volcanic eruptions as well. Kindly support my Patreon account since YouTube has again demonetized my YouTube channel. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below. The catastrophic impact of Vesuvius effectively froze the cities of Pompeii and Heraclium in time, like insects trapped in amber. And this has provided archaeologists with unique insights into the lives of those living in the shadow of the volcano thousands of years ago. The opportunity to actually walk around an ancient city almost as it was allows us to connect with our past in tangible ways. The scientific study of the remains of victims of Vesuvius are, however, not without controversy. Until very recently, the prevailing theory was that the heat and force of the pyroclastic flow pouring out of Vesuvius caused the soft tissues to instantly vaporize. This doesn't make sense, though. We know from studies in modern crematoria and from archaeological excavations of incompletely cremated remains that the soft tissue does not vaporize, even at hundreds of degrees Celsius. Instead, they slowly dehydrate, contract, and fall away from the body. So what happened? Inconclusive evidence. Work at Pompeii and Heraclium has shown the temperatures experienced following the eruption were at around 300 to 400 degrees Celsius, certainly not as hot as in a cremation. Other recent research has also suggested fragments of brain and neurological tissues were preserved at Heraclium. As exciting as this sounds, the evidence is actually rather inconclusive due to the lack of data, unusual protein preservation, and insufficient reference to previously published work. Bodies do change significantly when burned. Skin dehydrates and then splits to reveal the deeper tissue. The body is pulled into the framed pugilistic pose like the contorted plaster cast figures created from the cooled ash of the Pompeii victims. This appearance had previously been interpreted as the victim fleeing or fighting, but we now know it's simply the consequence of the muscles contracting. The internal organs will shrink and be destroyed, and the skeleton will be made visible. For me, this is where it gets interesting. I have spent the past 20 years studying what happens to the skeleton when it's subjected to extreme heat. Unlike the soft tissues, the bones are not fully destroyed, nor are they turned to ash. Extreme heat, bones crack and fragment in different ways depending on whether soft tissue is present or absent. They change color as the carbon is lost in warp and shrink in the microscopic crystal structure of the bone becomes active. This shrinking can be as much as 30%. In fact, we can use these heat-induced changes to interpret the context of death. For example, by calculating the intensity of burning from the extent of the changes, or as we did in recently published paper from Neolithic site in Sardinia, reconstructing the position of the body in relation to a fire. Recent research by Italian scientists suggests the city of Pompeii was engulfed in only 17 minutes, causing the residents to suffocate to death This supports our own work at the nearby town of Heraclium. We combined new methods of studying bone collagen and crystal structure to show the people sheltering in the stone boat houses by the beach, rather than being vaporized, were in fact suffocated and baked to death. Heraclium is different to Pompeii in that the victims had longer to respond to the eruption due to the location of the town. Analysis of the skeletons of the deceased show many people ran to the beach to await evacuation by sea to safety. Excavation and analysis of the skeletons suggest it was mainly men who died on the beach, while the women and children sheltered and ultimately died in the stone boat houses. This gives us a poignant glimpse into not only who these people were, but how they lived their last moments, with the women and children sheltering and no doubt terrified as the temperature increased to fatal levels, while their husbands and fathers had been desperately trying to secure a means of escape. Vesuvius didn't just teach us about the living, it showed us what happens to bodies when they are hit by such a catastrophic geological force. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support.